right, the death toll continuing to rise right now from these terror attacks in Brussels this morning. We know that at least 31 people have died. At least 200 people have been injured. Here at home, the presidential candidates, they're responding. Donald Trump wants to close our borders. He wants to halt our visa waiver program, which allows 20 million people to travel here from 38 countries whenever they want. His opponent, Ted Cruz, meanwhile, is calling for changes to the visa program. But let's listen first to Donald Trump on Mornings with Maria here, talking about this visa waiver program. This is from this morning.
It's time to stop that, absolutely, Jerry. And frankly, look, we're having problems with the Muslims, and we're having problems with Muslims coming into the country, and we are seeing it, whether it's California, where they killed the 14 people, the two young married couple.
Well, I will say it is striking that the day after Donald Trump called for America weakening NATO, withdrawing from NATO, we see Brussels, where NATO is headquartered, the subject of a radical Islamic terrorist attack. Donald Trump is wrong that America should withdraw from the world and abandon our allies.
Almost sounded as though he was blaming Donald Trump there, saying, you know, look, a week later, after Donald Trump said that we should withdraw from NATO, suddenly we see this attack happening in Brussels. Anyway, also today, President Obama speaking, as I said earlier, only less than a minute on the attacks during a speech in Cuba, and of course not changing his schedule at all to address this growing threat. I mean, here he is. You can see him attending a baseball game outside Havana. All right, we got our political panel here to weigh in on all of this and what it means for the election. Conservative commentator Gina and Democratic strategist Joe Trippi. Good to see both you guys. Gina, first starting with you. I mean, people are heading to the polls right now. We got a few states voting. We'll know the results tonight. How do Trump and Cruz fare given these news events? Do you think that the advantage, as crass as it is to say, but we are in a political world, and this is a news item that people very much are thinking about, terrorism, as they go to these voting booths. Who does this help? Who does it hurt?
I think, again, it helps Trump. I mean, blaming another candidate is not going to go well when we're looking at the real problem of adherent Islam being the true problem. And you have to, voters are going to have to come down on one side or the other, Trish. Either Donald Trump is a bombastic idiot who happens to be very lucky, or he's a visionary, citing the fact that he talked about bin Laden, named him before the 9/11 attacks. He talked about illegals coming over from Mexico right before Kate Steinle was then killed, and he practically called that one. He talked about Brussels before it even happened. I mean, people are going to have to take a look, and I think that's why exit polls have him in the 60, 70, 80%, I think it is, saying that this temporary Muslim immigration ban is a good idea. This works for him.
He is most definitely on the news curve, as we would say in the news business, Joe Trippi. You know, but are we surprised at all by that, by Ted Cruz lashing out? I mean, he's blamed Donald Trump for the violence at the protests. He's blamed now, seemingly, Donald Trump, or at least linking his rhetoric with these attacks. Is that going a step too far?
Yeah, I think so. Look, one of the things we got to remember about Donald Trump's ascent to the front-runner status came in the wake of the Paris attacks and in his call at the time for temporary stopping of Muslims at our borders, interests in the United States. There were a lot of Republicans who responded to that message, and his sort of strongman rhetoric has taken hold ever since. I think the huge mistake here for any candidate in either party is to politicize this, is to attack another candidate for their position or for what Ted Cruz did. This isn't, look, you're right, Trish, you said we're in political time, but this is too soon. I mean, it's hours later and Cruz is already out there trying to make political hay out of this. And by the way, he's been a little bit too anxious to make political hay out of other candidates. You know, I mean, whether it was Carson in Iowa, I mean, he's just sort of been too quick to this kind of stuff.
And that's been the
this one, I think,
criticism
really
against
crossed
him,
the line.
right? I mean, a lot of establishment folks early on didn't like him because he's as they have said, and I'll use a direct quote from some of them who have been on the show, that they feel like he's out for himself as opposed to out for the greater good. And this could be another example of that. Anyway, Gina and Joe, we are short on time today. We do have a lot to cover with a lot of news coming into us right now. But I should point out, everyone, that's by the way, those comments about Cruz were coming from Joe, who is a Democrat. Anyway, good to see both you guys. Still to come, everyone. Major U.S. airports and transit hubs.